Well, welcome to the show.
This is our view from the bench.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm Brendan, maize and blue confetti shooter.
And I'm Corey, blade sharpener for the youth hockey team. And happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday. We made it.
Yeah, happy Thursday, man. Mostly through the week. Obviously, I got Friday left, but it's been a decent week so far. Just trying to get through work. Other than, it's pretty normal. Just go to work every day. I did get to hang out with my dad yesterday after work.
Oh,
He's
nice.
up. He was up for a moment, so we grabbed some dinner and just kind of, hang out, talk, and yeah, that was pretty nice. How's your week been?
It's been pretty nice, dude. No games this week or anything. It's just been day shifts at the store. It's been pretty calm, which is weird. We've been usually so busy with customers. It's kind of died down, although we have lost, I think, 8 of 10, so not really doing a whole lot. And then, unfortunately, Zegras, they found out today, broke his ankle last night
Oh,
in Nashville,
jeez.
so he's on crutches and a boot for a while. So it's been kind of rough as far as that goes, but otherwise, pretty easy week. Like I said, I had therapy the other day, which was another good session. So again,
Nice.
always take care of your mentals.
Good.
Yeah, other than that, man, just getting ready for the podcast. I spent a lot of day on Tuesday at the Great Park store, prepping our sheet here and getting ready for this episode.
Yeah, and then we hung out a little bit last night, just kind of go over some stuff and add some things here or there, share some things. But yeah, excited. We got a huge one today. I
So
feel like it
much.
at least. There's like so much to talk about. Excited to get into it for sure. But before we do, if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode when we go live. What are they supposed to do, Mo, if they like what they're watching?
Gotta smash that like button if you like what you see.
Smash it, man. It'll definitely help. We obviously we love it, and we hope that you do too. We're gonna start with huge news. We're gonna start in the college football realm. Well, it doesn't really get much bigger than this. I mean, I know Michigan just won, and there's a lot of talk about Harbaugh leaving, and that's gonna break news when it happens, when it happens. But the hugest news was Nick Saban stepping down as the patriarch of this Alabama dynasty. It's crazy to see. What was your first thought when you saw that happen, man?
I thought I was misreading my phone. Well, actually, okay, back up. Not even that I didn't misread my phone. What happened was I was on my lunch break, and usually when I go on my lunch break, I take my headphones to work and I listen to Mason Ireland for about 20 minutes while I can. And they were doing like a segment about something, and then as they were wrapping it up, Ireland was like, I think I have some really big news that we need to break, but we need to go to commercial because I haven't had anybody verify it yet online yet. And then as soon as they came back, I went on Twitter and it was everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, not only did he retire, but he didn't tell us anything ahead of time and like, oh, this is his last game. Like, who knew going to that game against Michigan at the Rose Bowl was going to be his last game coaching? So that kind of just blew my mind that, although I guess not really that much thinking about how Saban is, he's not really about himself and trying to get like all the hoopla, but
Right.
I'm honestly shocked. I went back into work and I was like, Tim, he's like, I don't know what's happening. Like, we all just were completely shocked. I still can't believe it, even though he had a press conference and already talked about it.
I don't know if it was in that press conference or just a quote around it, was basically like he really felt that this past season was pretty grueling. It was tough on him. And I think it's just was finally reached that point where he had been thinking about it and hasn't been as successful. For the first time in his tenure, an entire graduating class went without winning a national championship. So
Wow.
4 years. So the first time. So I think it just started to wear on him, man. With all this new NIL stuff and things like that. Another side note actually was Unk and Ocho kind of talking about it, about how, the NIL has changed things. And at first the way that I had seen it was, oh, now Alabama doesn't get the leg up on paying people because they can get paid anywhere. But they had a different take, which I actually liked, and I want your opinion on, unless you've heard it already. I still want your opinion, I guess, is instead of people choosing now the school that will help them get to the NFL or the coach that will help prepare them for the next level, they're choosing where the money's at, which is nice for the college kids because I think it's insane how much the NCAA makes off the backs of these college students. So I'm glad that they're getting paid. But that kind of point made sense, man. Nick Saban and his legacy of come here, I will prepare you to be a professional, and you will excel, minus some quarterbacks, at the next level. And now that is not as big of a deal because if you're a top athlete, you don't even really necessarily, of course, everybody might want to go to the NFL. But if you can make a couple $1,000,000 playing college football wherever they feel like paying you the most, you don't necessarily need that coach that's going to, kind of take you to the next level when, you're just kind of getting paid there. What do you think about that? Does that make sense?
It does. And also, I mean, we talked about how before these guys are transferring schools every year. I mean, I think it was JT McDaniels, if I remember correctly, started at SC, and then he ended up at like 5 schools in 5 years because everywhere you can go, you can transfer and you don't have to sit out the year like you used to, which I'm totally cool with. But it also is in a weird sense, but I guess these guys who play football and basketball especially are not going to college to get the college experience because you kind of lose out on that by switching schools every year. You don't really have you're not probably in a fraternity that you're in for 3 or 4 years and get to have like a group of friends you become really close with. Like you're just moving school to school or free agency in a sense, and the professionals at that point. And, you talked about how many like players he's had that go in there, and the whole thing is like, I'm going to prepare you for the NFL and to get ready and prepare. He had 29 losses in his entire career. And at the time he was at Alabama, he had 44 players go in the first round. So he had more first round picks go through his system than losses he had in his career as a coach, which is absolutely just mind boggling, to be honest. I don't even understand how that's possible. But
that's just talent, man.
I think the money is a big part of it. And like you said, it's not necessary. If you're that good of a player and you go anywhere and they're going to pay you, you're probably going to get noticed and get to the NFL regardless of who the coach is and the system you go through, especially if you go through multiple schools throughout your career.
Right, because if you're successful at multiple places, then you have a higher likelihood of being successful in the NFL as well. So I think it's just crazy. That stat is nuts. So 206-29 total record in 17 years at Alabama, and 44, so 15 more first round draft picks than losses. I think that's insane. I mean, it really speaks to him how good of a coach he is and how good of a system he runs. You hear it all the time from former players and even some current ones, but mostly former players because obviously they have made it to the next level. He really does prepare you. He teaches you how to be a professional and how to treat football like it's a job as opposed to like it's an extracurricular activity, which it is for most people for a majority of their life.
Yeah,
I think it's crazy. I already saw that their number one recruit has already decommitted as soon as Saban broke the news. He's like, well, I'm out of here too then. But I think that's part of the Saban legacy of preparing each of those individual student athletes for that next level. And he obviously sees that, well, he's gone. I don't even know who they're going to replace him with. I'm going to take advantage and control his own destiny, which I'm happy for the guy who's doing it. But he wasn't even just at Alabama. I mean, he had a bunch of different schools that he taught at before, and he's just been winning pretty much the whole time, right?
Yeah, and then you look back too, not only that, I mean, he got the national title at LSU. I mean, he had those 2 years in Miami that didn't really work out very well, but that was also because they should have gotten Drew Brees at the time he's a free agent, but they didn't trust his shoulders, so they went a different route. I think Dante Culpepper maybe at that time, and it was just not – I mean, imagine if he would have had Brees. That could have been a completely different aspect of what happened in Miami with him there. But, it is what it is, and also just – I mean, a winner every year. And I have to kind of think too, not only does NIL have to maybe play a role in this, but maybe the 12-team playoff has a role too. Maybe he sees that as it's not as amazing and great to win because you have the 4 teams right now, which 2 prior, and now you're opening it up to 12, and all kinds of things can happen and upsets and stuff. So maybe he also sees that as like, okay, I'm going to get out before this completely changes and gets out of control. I mean, that was part of the reason Mike Krzyzewski and even who's
Roy Williams?
Thank you. I was like North Carolina, I couldn't think of his name. But part of the reason those guys retired a little earlier than most people probably thought was because the NIL and the first year one and done things, just kind of changed the way the game was played and how they expected players to kind of build a program with. So I think that's got to be at least playing a possibility in his thinking too.
Yeah, that makes sense. He has 6 titles at Alabama. Again, this is the first class that have come in as a freshman and did not have a championship in their tenure there at the school. Isn't that's just crazy to think about under Saban? But it just goes to kind of his legacy. I'm pretty sure he's like done, right? He's not going to another school or he's not going to, the pros or anything. I mean, he's like done, right?
I can't imagine he'd want to go anywhere else at this point. You have all the control. You've done everything and been completely had your hands on it all in Alabama for 17 years. And all of a sudden, and plus, I mean, him and his wife, he did mention like they want to be able to like still enjoy their life. And you mentioned, he said it was a grind this last year and where they were at the beginning to getting where they were and having an opportunity to even get to the semifinals in the first place. I mean, I have nothing against. It'll be weird. Like you said, I don't know who goes in there. They've already talked about Dan Lanning from Oregon said he's staying in Oregon, so he's already off the board. Now there's, the Washington coach, Kalen DeBoer, who just took them to the national title game. But I don't know, maybe Sweeney leaves Clemson. I don't know. There's a lot of different options out there, but I don't know where they go, because I think I even heard too that Saban's going to stay around and help them maybe possibly decide who takes over for him. So
that kind of makes sense, to be honest.
You would hope he'd have a good idea of, or at least a couple people he thinks that would be, the right piece. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just going to be weird not seeing him on the sideline for Alabama Crimson Tide next fall.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be super weird. I think the two people that I like the most in here, some of the names that you were throwing out, like I said, Kalen DeBoer, he's only been in Washington for a couple years. I think he has some of that unfinished business in his mind. Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, he just got that job too.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of staying there. Lane Kiffin, I think, just re-signed with Ole Miss. I think they extended him, and they're starting to build up a nice program.
Yeah, they're number 5, I think, right now for the season poll for next year. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think they have the number 1 recruited class as far as like transfers and people out of high school. I think they have the best ranked recruited class right now. But the two that I think are the most likely, I'm not saying it could be somebody not on this list, are Dabo Sweeney out of Clemson, because he is a former not only player, not a great one, for the Crimson Tide, but also was a wide receiver and tight end coach there for a short period of time. And Mike Norvell, and mostly for Mike Norvell, who out of FSU. Did you hear about the news that dropped today about Florida State?
No.
They just got hit with NCAA sanctions for violating NIL, and for 2 years they're on some sort of NCAA probation. Well, what a better time to get the hell out then. I mean, you already got screwed in the polls, so they don't like you there. Now you complained about it, so they screwed you on this NIL stuff. Why don't we just get out and go to a huge program like Alabama? And if he could take Florida State, which is a very perennial program, I feel like they're always kind of in it, and maybe not top 4 like they have been this season, but I feel like they're always in the kind of top 25 range. What better place to kind of make another new stamp in than the Crimson Tide, right?
Man, Norvell leaving Florida. Damn, that would. If I'm Florida State, man, I'm pissed and just lost, because you had that whole great season. You lose your quarterback, and then you end up going undefeated anyway. You still don't get into the playoff, like you mentioned, in the top 4. And then, they were the ones also the big part of the ACC complaining about not putting the 12-team playoff into effect this year and waiting one more, which would ultimately help them get into it this year. Yeah, and then they're suing the conference to try to get out of there. So yeah, and now with the sanctions, if I'm Norvell, I'm getting the hell out of there.
That's what I'm saying.
To Alabama and get to the SEC. Even if he does go there, replacing Saban is just,
it's a big task.
Oh, that's big shoes to fill, man. I mean, 6 titles there, 1 at LSU as well, so 7 as a coach. Although Bear Bryant was the coach of Alabama for forever, and nobody thought anybody
Legend
could ever, be what he was, and
true.
I feel like Saban's gone beyond that at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he's off. I mean, there's not really much of a question. He's the greatest college football coach of all time, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's kind of where we stand on Saban. It's going to be super interesting to see who replaces him. But other than that, I would just give you kind of a hats off and a clap for just running a great dynasty and just not necessarily leaving on top, but I mean, still were in the college football playoffs and went to overtime. That's fairly on top besides winning it all. So
yeah, absolutely. And it'll be weird just because you talked about his dynasty coming to an end. It's one of those, you either love a team that's in the middle of a dynasty or running one, or you hate them. And
yeah,
it's completely different depending on the team and the sport and the attitude of the coaching staff or whatever. And Saban, I don't hate Alabama and Saban, but it got to the point I'm just over you guys winning all the time, man. It gets annoying sometimes. But now it's just going to be like, oh, Alabama, yeah, they just exist in the world of college football. I guess they're not going to be on my radar like they used to be anymore moving forward.
Yeah, at least for the time being. Who knows how who knows who will come in there and could do some stuff. But yeah, legend in his own right. So hats off to you, Nick.
Yeah,
we have more legends and more dynasties, though, dude. Oh my gosh, that was the big news today, man. Bill freaking Belichick done parting ways with the Patriots. Kind of a mutual parting ways after a completely abysmal season with 3-14 or 4-13. They were atrocious, bro. I think they had 5 or 6 games where they didn't score a touchdown.
Oh man, and I mean, I feel bad for Belichick in that sense, but he's also not an offensive guy. He's holding his defense, so it's not really his fault. And McDaniels left. There was always talk about if Belichick did come back, that McDaniels would come back as the offensive coordinator again, but now that's out the window. But I don't know where Belichick goes or if he goes, because he's also going to want final say on the roster, which is basically a GM. And I feel like a lot of teams don't want to give that power to coaches anymore. But I mean, he was one of the few, if any. I mean, I guess there's a couple other we'll talk about in a minute, but there's just I don't know where he would make sense or what. There's obviously rumors of the Chargers, and that's been kind of going around for the last month or so, even before this became official. But I don't know where he goes or what he does at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see if I was looking from the outside in, I don't as much as I enjoyed the Patriots dynasty and I think Bill Belichick is, if we're talking about greatest coach of all time, I think he is the greatest NFL coach of all time. I mean, how do you top 6? He's first in almost every single category when it comes to coaching, I think, besides coach of the year awards, which his personality would lend him
wins to as far as the most than any other franchise has in the sport. Like,
yeah, they tied with the Steelers
with 6. He tied with the Steelers. Like,
yes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the thing is like, and plenty of shows, Colin and all these people have talked about it. He is seemingly out of touch when it comes to, and doesn't really want to listen to anybody when it comes to the draft, man. They haven't hit in the draft since like Gronk, dude, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And he just takes so much control, like you're saying, that I don't know how many teams, to your point, are going to really want to relinquish that much control on the roster. Now, when it comes to having extreme input, that's a completely different story. But I feel like basically after a certain point of the season and, a couple months before the draft, Bill Belichick just tells his scouts, give me all your notes and kind of fuck off. You know what I mean? So, and they haven't been drafting well at all. There's plenty of receivers they passed up for N'Keal Harry that one year out of Arizona State. It's just not working, so even some of the trades, grabbing Hunter Henry, that was decent. He likes tight ends, but it's just nothing's really working out. So if I were him, I would not try to pull like a Tom Brady and go try to do something somewhere else, because there's not very many teams that are ready to set up to win that are in need of a coach. Most of the time, if you need a coach, it's because you're not doing well, which we'll get to in a second. Sometimes it's even when you're not doing, or even when you are doing well, but that's another story. We'll let you kind of go off in a moment. But yeah, it's just kind of weird. It's weird to see these dynasties ending in a sense, even though, the Alabama one, like we talked about before, hasn't won in 4 years, and Belichick hasn't won anything without Tom. They still were the grandfather of that dynasty. So, but kind of hats off to him too, right?
Yeah, and maybe if he does decide to go coach somewhere else, maybe instead of being the GM and head of operations or whatever, maybe the team that he goes to can give him the opportunity to maybe help pick the GM, so that way they're at least on the same page and they have similar thought processes, but also a different idea, and maybe a little bit younger too, because the next coach we're going to talk about, because I'm just going to transition right to it, is Pete Carroll. That's what Pete Carroll did when he got into Seattle. He picked Schneider to be his GM. So he wasn't the GM, but he picked the guy who he trusted to be the GM. And the other thing you talked about, Belichick doesn't listen to a lot of people. He's kind of stuck in his ways. Carroll, the one thing he does is he hires a bunch of young guys, and he, in a sense, puts all the younger opinions and ideas around him. So at least he has more options to think about and look in. I still think it's strange that Seattle, they just made I don't know if they're going to play playoffs this year, but even when Pete and them don't make the playoffs, they did a year ago, they're always 7-9, 8-8. They're around 500. They've never had a year that I can think of where they had 2 wins or something terrible like New England did this year. And
they went 9-8 this year.
Yeah, and Pete is just so raw. Even in his press conference yesterday, talking about, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm not going to go sleep on a cot. I know you guys think I'm the end of the season. I should be drained. I'm not. I'm ready to go. I don't know where I'm going or what's happening, but, I'm going to just see what happens and where I go. And I'm just, okay, this is my thought. If I'm the Chargers, I call Pete Carroll right now. And I thought
that he's moving. He already moved into the advisory role.
Yeah, they just had to say that just to be nice. If you're Seattle, I don't think he's going to do that. I mean, okay. Well, speaking of that, think about this. Paul Allen, who used to own the Seahawks and the Trailblazers, passed away back in 2018. So his family or estate, and I think his sister Jody is in charge of it, technically own the teams right now. And part of that is they're supposed to sell the team at some point, and the profits are supposed to be donated. I don't really know what the timeline is or how that works.
That's what Paul wanted?
Yeah, that's what Paul wanted, apparently. But since she's taken over essentially in the last couple of years, she has now fired Pete Carroll, traded Russell Wilson, and also traded Damian Lillard. She's done a lot of tearing down in the organization. But again, for somebody who doesn't necessarily know the sport or the teams as well, it's kind of weird that the estate still owns it and hasn't sold it to somebody who would really run it a little bit better and hopefully make better decisions. But who knows? But I just think the Chargers, Pete Carroll already coached in LA. He coached USC for a long time. He knows the
Yep.
media. They already have a quarterback with Herbert. So then all he has to worry about is the defense, hire a good offensive coordinator and let him do his thing. If not, I wouldn't bring Kellen Moore back, but bring somebody else that's interviewing for head coaching jobs that are offensive coordinators that don't get it and see if they'll come to LA and want to coach with Herbert and see what they can do with that. And if Pete can turn that defense into even something that we think they should be based on the roster they have built over the last few years, the Chargers could be right back in it. And not only that, the Chargers might actually have like some pull in the city of LA because since they've got here, nobody talks about them, nobody cares about them, and they always seem to lose and blow it with the last coaches they have because they always hire coaches without former head coaching experience. This would be a done deal in my head that the Chargers would then catapult into a playoff team next year. If not, depending on what the Chiefs do, put themselves in an AFC West title chase.
I think the Harbaugh is number one for them, but I could see that. I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. Let me put it that way. You know what I mean? I don't know if he wants that. He does seem to like Seattle, but 72 years old, man. I'm pretty sure he's 72. So
yeah, he is.
I think he'd be the oldest head coach in the NFL if he, were to have still been the head coach of Seattle. So it'll be interesting to see if he does actually stay in that role like you were talking about, or if it's one of those things where it was, just something to say. And if he gets calls, maybe he'd take it. That'd be super interesting. I
don't know. I just feel like Pete gets LA. He's been here. He knows how to work the media. He does, PR and knows how to talk to people. I feel like all of a sudden you'd have people talking about the Chargers in a more positive way. And maybe they'd even remember that they're not in San Diego anymore because people still call them the San Diego Chargers all the time.
Oh yeah, they're in LA. I totally no. I'm just I like it. Another one. This is where we're gonna kind of let you go off a little bit because I know that you were kind of mad about it. Titans have officially moved on from Mike Vrabel. They are mutually parting ways. I know he's got interest in New England, obviously, especially now that Belichick has officially left. I'll give me my little 2 cents real quick, and then I'll let you kind of go. Yeah, I don't pay attention to the Titans as much as you do, so I'll let you kind of get into it. But I don't see him as the problem. They're one of the teams that people overlook constantly, yet they're in the playoffs almost every single year. With Ryan Tannehill under center, and no offense, he definitely revived his career out of Miami here in Tennessee. Yep. But he's no Pro Bowl quarterback who is this perennial arm that you're going to take. So I don't know. I think it's weird, but from the outside perspective, I'm just like seems weird to me. What do you think, my friend?
I'm so mad. I literally told my dad 2-3 weeks ago, I think before the season, he was like, what do you think they're going to do? I was like, well, I hope they don't fire Vrabel because he's not the problem. They have no offensive line, which is why Tannehill got hurt, which is why Derrick Henry can't run for 2 years. Like, I don't understand what they're supposed to do. Now, I know part of the issue is they brought in Ron Carthen last year as the new GM because they fired John Robinson before, which Robinson and Vrabel were both New England people. So they were very on the same page about things. I do have to say, once they made the trade for trading A.J. Brown to the Eagles a couple years ago, I think at that point, Vrabel and Johnson were just not on the same page, which is part of the reason they let Robinson go in the middle of the year last season. But I don't understand how Vrabel is the problem. Like you said, that team competes week in and week out. There was weeks that they were winning games, and I'm mad that they're winning because I want a higher draft pick, but I also
like the last week of the season.
Yeah, or the Miami Monday Night Football game. Like I understand he gets them ready. He kind of not to the same fact or record as him, but he kind of has that Mike Tomlin feel where they're always going to be prepared and every game's going to be difficult if you're going to beat them. They're not going to just get walked over or anything. Now the reports are part of it is that maybe when he was in New England doing his like Ring of Honor ceremony, there's rumors that Amy Strunk Adams, who's the controlling owner of the Titans now, thought that maybe he was a little too chummy and talking about how he liked New England so much. And maybe that's where he ends up now with Belichick being out of there.
Whatever.
But part of that too is if that's the case, then do a coaching trade. There's no reason to just let him go. You could, and I know her whole thing, well, it was going to take too long. We might, if you know you're going to trade him, you can start interviewing other people for the job anyway. You don't have to wait for that trade to be done first. Right. You can interview people ahead of time, work on the trade on the side. Now, I know that gives Vrabel less opportunity or choice of where he goes because there has to be compensation involved. But again, why would you not at least broach the subject and at least see if he wants to go to New England, that's the only place he wants to go. Now that Belichick's, all you have to do is wait a day or two for Belichick to get let go. And then you could have, he wants to go there. Let's make a trade. And I know New England loves Vrabel. He won 3 Super Bowls there as a player. Obviously Bob Kraft likes him. So I don't know, man. I was okay, you know how you've talked about you deciding if you want to stay a Cardinals fan or not. And
Yeah,
back in 2015, I think I was kind of on the same page with the Titans. They were really bad. Bud Adams had just passed away, so Amy hadn't quite gotten control yet, but it was in the transition of that. They were trying to figure out what to do. And then they were just, it was bad, man. They were 3-13, 3-13. I was like, what are we doing? I don't even want to tell people I'm rooting for this team anymore. It's so bad. Like, people don't buy me any Titans gear. Don't buy me any merch of any kind. But then they hired, and then they fired Mike Munchak and Ken Wisnut because they were terrible. They only won 5 games in 2014 and 15 combined. Now, once she kind of took over, that's when they hired, God dang it, who's the guy who took over before Rabel? I can't remember his name right now. Dang it. But anyway, he was there for 2 years, got him at 500, 9-7, and made the playoffs once. And then they fired him. And I was like, well, why would you fire him? We just went 9-7 2 or 3 years in a row. But then they brought Vrabel in, and Vrabel completely changed the culture. They won the division. They went to an AFC title game against the Chiefs. We ran into Mahomes on their first trip to their Super Bowl. So, I mean, they were up 14-0 in the first quarter. But that was when Kansas City that year was down, I think, 21-0 or 28-0 to Houston
24
in the playoffs and still won. So I can't really get mad about that part. But I have to say, even though I didn't enjoy Amy's interview with Keith Jones, who's the play-by-play guy for the Titans, I believe, on the radio, I do have to say she did make me believe in her the last time she kind of did this whole process. So I have to at least give her an opportunity and a chance. I'm just not very happy with him being fired. I would have been happy with the entire rest of the coaching staff being let go and maybe the owners wanting to have more say in who the coaching staff was. But now I don't know what to think and what we're going to do, because who's going to go take that Titans job? We have the number 7 pick who already drafted Will Levis last year. They like him, which is
doesn't
great.
look bad, dude. He doesn't look bad.
Doesn't, but again, there's no offensive line. He got beat the hell up, and he's already hurt this year twice. So I don't think
losing DeAndre Hopkins. That was a 1-year deal.
Exactly. I don't think Vrabel's the problem. I don't know what they're going to do, and I hope they completely blow. Maybe they get Pete Carroll to come down to Tennessee. I don't know, but they got to do something, because they're interviewing everybody from what I've read too. They're about to interview like 5 or 6 different coordinators. I think the offensive coordinator from the Lions, the defensive coordinator from the Giants, possibly. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but again, I am not happy, and I'm just trying to keep my cool and see what Amy and them decide to do. Because again, the last time I wasn't happy, they tended to make the right decision. So I'm hoping that is the case this time.
I guess we will see. I mean, I know that they traded Kevin Byard in the middle of the season as well. They just seem to love to give good players to the Eagles for some reason. I don't understand the infatuation with it. But when I went and looked right now, to be honest with you, Vrabel being the defensive coach that he is, the offense isn't his fault, right? But if we're being real here, when I went and looked at the rankings, the Titans rank in the 20 or worse in overall defense, rush defense, and cover defense alike. Yep. So being in the bottom half of the league on defense with a defensive coach, I'm not saying it's right, but that's the only thing I could think of, right? They seem stagnant. You guys are in this spot, like in the middle.
Yep.
The middle is almost the worst place to be, right? You either want to be winning or you want to be losing a lot, so that way you can, kind of build something up. Exactly. And they've just been in the middle. Maybe not this season, obviously only 6 wins, I think it was total, but most of the time they're average or above average, but they're not really peaking. So the only thing I could think of is maybe they're just trying to kind of wipe the slate clean. And again, like you said, if you can trust them for now, we'll see what can come of it. And, but this is now 8 total teams that are looking for a head coach now, right?
Yeah, Falcons, Commanders, Chargers, Panthers. Sorry, Panthers, Falcons, Chargers. We knew were going to be for sure. The Raiders, obviously, possibly Antonio Pierce, which that's one of the people the Titans might interview. So yeah, Falcons, Commanders, Chargers, Panthers, Raiders, Titans, Seahawks, and Patriots. Now that's literally a fourth of the league that has an opening head coaching position right now.
That's pretty crazy. And some of these teams are actually, none of them are good, like in the sense of like they're ready, but the Commanders job is going to be good with this new ownership and a higher draft pick. Yep. The Chargers gig is going to be good because they have decent pieces on defense and a quarterback that is a franchise quarterback. The Seahawks, I think, is still a good one, but Geno Smith is an interim guy. I don't think he's terrible, and that they just went 9-8. Okay. The rest of them are a little bit, touchy. But we'll see kind of where they go. I know, obviously, like we talked about earlier, Harbaugh's going to be in on this. Tons of coordinators around the league. I'm curious to see if they are willing, they as in the Commanders. I know they're going to do a coaching job. I wonder if they're going to be willing to see and give, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I just forgot of it now that I talk about it. Offensive coordinator. Who's their OC?
For Eric Bieniemy. Do you think they?
Yeah, Bieniemy. I wonder if they give Bieniemy a chance at the head coaching gig. I know that's what he's been looking for a long time. That's why he made this lateral move away from Andy Reid.
He would get to pick his quarterback if they want to use that top pick to get one. I mean, there's going to be at least a couple guys near the top there that they can choose between or even trade up for, and maybe Bieniemy gets his guy and then can build his offense around them. Now, at that point, you have to bring in a pretty good defensive coordinator to run the other side of the ball, but I mean, it's worth a shot if I'm Washington, right?
There's tons of comparisons, and I know they'd have to trade up for it because the Bears have to decide on what they want to do with their first pick. But there's tons of comparisons from Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes. Dude. Tons of them. People are saying that he is. I'm not saying he is Patrick Mahomes or he's the next Patrick Mahomes, but like play styles, just really in charge of everything, can make some weird throws and stuff like that. Great arm. That'd be a great place to kind of start. Now, maybe he'll just stay the OC, but I don't know. I'd say give him an interview.
That would be a really good call by the Commanders, the new ownership, to come in, trade up, get Caleb, give Bieniemy the reins, and let him try to see what he can do with that kind of offense. That would be a really good idea.
I think that'd be kind of cool. But we'll have to see. Obviously, this all kind of just happened. We're getting through the playoffs right now. There's going to be a lot of stuff that goes on before some of these head coaching positions are filled. Some will be filled fairly quickly because they want their guy. But it'll be interesting to see who goes where. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of those playoffs, though. Coming up, bro. Saturday. 2 more days until we finally get some NFL playoff football for this season. It's been a long time coming. We talked about it a little bit on Monday's episode where we kind of wrapped up Week 18 and set up all the matchups. Well, here we are to kind of talk about those matchups. Let's break them down. Yeah? What do you think?
Yeah. Let's dude, I'm excited. I the only thing I don't like is that Monday night game. I feel like that's kind of weird for playoffs, but I know that's their new thing, so at least we got 2 games on Saturday, and we're going to start off with the Browns at the Texans, which this is a rematch just from Christmas Eve, I believe. So teams know each other. Now that CJ Stroud wasn't in that game, I believe that was Case Keenum playing quarterback at that time. So that does kind of change the dynamic a little bit as far as the Browns defensive on that side of the ball. But that was also the day Amari Cooper had like 250 yards playing in fantasy, but we don't even talk about that part.
Ooh, yeah. You still came in 3rd place, got your money back this year, so that's not that big of a deal. But
Damn it.
Yeah, true. That was that was huge. Just 40, almost 50 points from one player, man. That guy, he went off. Amari Cooper is extremely underrated because he's just like a quiet dude and he just kind of does his thing. He's an extremely underrated wide receiver. I give him props. This is kind of how I see this one going. As much as I'm rooting for CJ Stroud, and I love this whole CJ Stroud story. One of my favorite things actually about the league, and I think he's my new favorite quarterback. He's very talented. He's from our local area, played for a team that I used to root for. And as someone who is trying to do the same thing, he's an extremely devout follower of Christ. And he makes it known in almost every single press conference. And I personally love it. So I'm rooting for him, but I think the Browns have a more complete team. Flacco has that experience, him being at the helm. He's 5-0, I believe, straight up and against the spread in wildcard games in his career. Even though they're on the road, I understand that. This team is built to win. He actually has the second most experience in the playoffs of the quarterbacks this year behind, wins-wise, behind Patrick Mahomes. He has, obviously he's got 10 playoff wins. I think Mahomes has 11. He's already got a Super Bowl under his belt. I'm rolling with the Browns on the road in this one. I think CJ is good, and they keep it close, but this defense is honestly nasty. Again, they just beat him on Christmas Eve without CJ Stroud. I think they're going to kind of keep it close. I'm going 35-24 Browns.
Oh, wow. You got a high scoring, though. For the
yeah. For some reason, yeah.
Okay. Well, I definitely think it's weird. I feel like the Texans making the playoffs and the way they played last week was kind of their, apex of their season, so that kind of they're going to celebrate a little bit too much almost, and not that they won't be ready for this game, but I feel like the Browns took everybody out last week and knew they were going to be the 5. There was no up and down or moving. It was just a matter of if they were going to play Houston or Jacksonville or Indy, whoever decided to in the AFC South. I kind of think in a weird sense, I know CJ Stroud hasn't turned the ball over a lot, but I feel like this Browns defense is going to make it a lot harder for him than most teams have, because again, they didn't get to see him on Christmas Eve. I don't know. The Browns, like you said, they're humming, man. Flacco and Njoku and Amari Cooper have been really good together. And the Browns not only have had 5 quarterbacks start different games this year, they lost Chubb at the beginning of the year to a knee injury at running back. They have completely just figured out a way, and again, next man up, as they say in the NFL, and have figured it out. And, going on the road is not a big deal. I feel like, the Browns are 3-5 on the road this year, but you could count a couple of those early when Flacco wasn't there and they were kind of struggling a little bit. So I just feel like the Browns are going to go in there. Flacco's going to be ready, and he's going to have this young team in a sense. Most of the squad is pretty young as far as playoff experience, but he is the old vet, and I think as he goes, the team goes. So as long as he doesn't do anything stupid and turn the ball over, which the Texans defense, even though D'Amico Ryans is a defensive coordinator formerly and now the head coach, their defense is like okay. It's not great. I mean, they didn't necessarily kill the Colts last week either, but again, that's Gardner Minshew. This is Joe Flacco, who you mentioned has won a Super Bowl, has the second most wins, active quarterback in the playoffs. I'm with you, but I think it's going to be a little bit bigger disparity. I think the Browns are going to go in there and win 31-17.
I think the biggest thing, so we both have them scoring in the 30s because the Browns are just doing work right now. I think the biggest thing, and I just looked it up on Pro Football Focus, the Texans, as far as like pass blocking goes, they have the 19th ranked offensive line as pass blocking. Guess who has the number one pressure defense in the league?
Yeah, it's the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns. They're pretty good. And they just get to the quarterback. I mean, with Myles Garrett and who? Oh man, I feel like there's another
Smith,
guy missing.
Right?
I don't. Yeah, thank you.
Being Green Bay,
Yes, they just get to the quarterback. They know how to get there, and they pressure like crazy. CJ, being a rookie, is going to be running for his life because this line is, again, towards the end of the pack, not really in the middle, but end of the middle. But yeah, I see it not going great for the Houston, which just sucks, man, because I'm kind of rooting for them a little bit. But to be honest with you, I'm kind of rooting for the Browns too, man. It's kind of cool to see these random teams that aren't normally doing so well.
Let's get weird,
making
man.
in the playoffs.
Browns to the Super Bowl. Let's do it.
Down. I'm kind of down. I know that kind of disrupts your Super Bowl pick in the AFC, but
again, let's go for weird. I didn't bet on it. I got no money I'm going to lose, so I don't care.
Yeah, true. Why
Titans aren't in it, so weird. Let's go.
Who
weird.
cares?
And the one thing about the Texans, they're going to play indoors, so at least that'll be, or at least Houston will be even easier. But the next game on Saturday is going to be freezing. That is Dolphins on the road in Kansas City. I think we talked about it yesterday. It looks like right now the temperature is going to be about 2, maybe 3 degrees with the wind chill. It's going to be in like the negatives. This is going to be an insane game, but another matchup of old friends. I know that the Chiefs played against Tyreek Hill earlier this year in the Dolphins, but it was in Germany, so it'll be Tyreek's first time going back to Arrowhead, which is a great story. And the Dolphins are not healthy. We talked about it before. Even I haven't heard if Mozart's going to play yet. Waddle's still on the injury report, so it'll be interesting to see what they look like. Now, again, the Chiefs have not been playing well, even though they've won a few games. They're kind of like the Eagles. They were struggling, but somehow getting to the AFC West title anyway. I don't know. I feel like the Mahomes and them at home in the cold against Miami is going to be ready. They want to prove the world wrong, and this might be their only home game in the playoffs too, because they're a 3 seed and not the 1 like they normally are. Yeah, very true. The Arrowhead Stadium is covered in snow a couple days now before the game. So I agree. I think the weather's going to help. I do think that the depleted Dolphins have just a tough time in general, just because of, like you mentioned, the injuries, mostly in my opinion on the defensive side of the ball, because they can still score regardless of if Jalen Waddle's a little hobbled. I mean, they got plenty of speed out of the backfield. But I think the hard part is going to be stopping Patrick. Again, they haven't looked great, but no pressure on him. Chris Jones is going to be hunting Tua the whole game. I think as much as they've looked terrible, well, compared to the normal Chiefs, right? Yeah. The playoffs are a completely different animal. They get an easier one to start. Completely injury-riddled, warm weather team coming to the frozen tundra, not Green Bay. Sorry to take that. Still, I think they're calling it the Ice Bowl this weekend.
Okay, yeah, they're not going to make it easy. I do think that the Dolphins put up a fight. I'm going like 24-17. I think it's going to be close, but I think Patrick's going to take it.
All right, I'm not far off there. I have it 24-14 Chiefs, but also I think the Chiefs defense is much better than people have been talking about. And
yes,
even though the Dolphins offense is very good, again, without all their weapons healthy, and again, out in that cold, if it's snowing, that's not ideal for them to be playing that. And obviously the Chiefs are used to it. So I think that's going to be on their advantage, and the Chiefs are going to get out of there with a win and move on. But who knows? That's why they play the game, as my dad always says.
Yeah, no, exactly. Chiefs defense is mostly good. They're ranked in the top 20 in pretty much everything, but overall defense, they are 15. Their run defense, their cover defense, like with again, Jamar Chase talking shit for no reason.
Yeah.
They're top 10 in cover defense. So
just don't get that.
I don't know. But we'll see. That one I think is going to be close. One that I think is not going to be close.
Hold on, before you move on to the next one. The other thing about the Chiefs game, if not everybody knows this, it is going to be on Peacock only, the app.
Yeah, they're going to make the Swifties buy.
So if anybody out there does not have Peacock, you're not going to be able to watch this game on Saturday unless you live in the Kansas City or Dolphin or Miami area. Obviously, they'll be on local feed there. But other than that, you got to have Peacock to have it. Thankfully, I have that, so I'm not worried about it.
Me too, actually.
But if you don't have Peacock, you're not going to be able to watch this game, which is another money grab for the NFL, obviously, to just keep adding on to the billions they make.
It was like, is that not like so planned to take the one team that everybody would want to watch and put them on a channel that nobody has? Yeah, that's genius.
Of course, that's how they get you to
Good job,
sign
Roger.
up. Even if it's for the trial, they got to get you to sign up and do it.
Jerks, bro. Jerks. Again, that's one I think that we both think is going to be a little bit closer game. One that Vegas doesn't think is going to be close. I also don't think it's going to be close. Is the Steelers visiting the Bills? Yeah. I do not like the Bills. I want them to lose every game they play, so I'm rooting hard against them. But they are 10.5-point favorites, and let me just say that the Steelers, since drafting T.J. Watt, are 1-10 all time when they don't have him.
Oh, that hurts.
This is not going to be a great game. They're on the road. Now, granted, the weather isn't too much of a problem for them. They're a cold weather team too. Just traveling over from Pittsburgh to New York ain't going to be too big of a problem. Steelers fans travel well, but Bills fans are fucking insane. So
they're going to be broken in the parking lot.
It's going to be fucking nuts, bro. I do think it would be closer if TJ was playing. The Bills aren't great on offense right now. They're more balanced, but they're not so like dynamic, in my opinion. Correct. Josh Allen had 3 turnovers last week against the Dolphins. I do think they win, and I do think they cover the 10.5-point spread. I'm taking Bills 24-10, unfortunately.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm kind of with you there. I'm with you. Without T.J. Watt, it completely changes the whole dynamic of the Steeler defense. They're not going to have the same pressure on Allen. Although, like you talked about, the Bills have been much more balanced, if not anything, more running than passing. So, if they can go out there and get their run going, I mean, the Steelers, even though they've won to get here, Mason Rudolph is not very good. Their offense has not been the reason they're winning these games. Their defense has been giving them good field position. Mason Rudolph, what was it last week? He was like 18 of 22.
18 to 20.
But he threw like 145 yards or something. It wasn't like they're.
I mean, it was raining though. Okay, give him a freaking break.
Okay, but the last 2 games he's kind of had similar numbers. It's kind of Trent Dilfer-ish back in the day with the Ravens when they had that great defense. But the Steeler defense without T.J. Watt is not the same. And not the same. Again, the Bills are okay on offense, and I think that Jay Cutler. I'm sorry, Josh Allen. Wow, look what you got me doing. I'm calling him Jay Cutler.
Yeah, buddy.
As long as Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over, though, that's the biggest key. If they can keep the ball on the ground and run, and not have to give him an opportunity to throw in interceptions and give the Steelers good field position, then I think they win too. It's weird though. I do think 24-10 as well. I think they are going to cover that spread.
You picked the same. That's hilarious, bro. Because we do fill this out separate. I mean, we might look at it and it's there, but I'm just jabbing through it. 24-10. Yeah. Okay, hey baby, we should pick a bet on correct score. You know how they have that? We should put like $5 on correct score. I'll call Art, see if he can play, or tell my dad or something. Yeah. All right, cool, sweet. Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, I don't want them to win, but it is what it is. They're the better team at home. Missing, the other team's missing their best player.
And you're right.
We'll see.
The Bills fans are nuts, dude. Thankfully, this is the early game on Sunday, so it'll be a 1:00 Eastern game. So those people will be drunk, but it could be worse if they were the 4:30 game because they would just be
they'd have all day.
Yeah, they'd be hammered over there, breaking even more tables. So there'll probably be some yellow, terrible towels, but I can't imagine there's going to be too many of them there. I think the Bills fans are just going to be ready to rock and roll. They probably feel better about this team than they have in the last 4 or 5 years that they've made playoff runs.
Yeah, which is weird because they barely made it in the sense it was win or not to be in. So, well, I mean, besides obviously your team helping, but before that would happen, it was win or don't be in. So, you mentioned there's going to be some yellow in the stands. The other team that also has great travel, as regardless of where they're at now, maybe they just have fans all over the place. It's going to be some yellow in Dallas this weekend. Yeah. Packers on the road at the Cowboys. Here comes bet. Did Dez catch it or not? Rematch, I guess. I mean, obviously it's not a rematch. Dez has been out of the league for a minute now. But yeah, Packers coming to visit old coach Mike McCarthy and his new team, the Cowboys. Cowboys 8-0 at home this season. And I think they're winning by an average of like 30 or something like that. I mean, they're just beating the crap out of people at home.
Yeah, I think I heard
spread 7.5.
I'd say I think this morning Michelle Smallman was saying that in their home games they outscored their opponents by like a combined 160, 70 points or something. It's out of control that how good they are at home. Indoors, they'll be ready to go. You mentioned Mike McCarthy against his old team that he coached, the Packers, but Jordan Love has been really good, especially the last 5 weeks or so to get them here. But I'm with you, man. The Cowboys are just so good at home. They're going to be ready. I did also see somebody tweet, I thought this was really funny, that, the Cowboys are going to get to the NFC title game and lose to the Niners. And I was like, well, how do you know that? And they look at the last couple of years. They lost to the Niners in San Francisco in the wild card round. Then last year they lost in San Francisco to the Niners in the division round. So if you follow that.
And they finished 12-5 both times, just like they did this year.
All right, there you go. So they should win this game and then end up in the NFC title game having to go to Frisco and possibly losing to them again, which would be hilarious because I always love the Cowboy fans thinking they're going to win and then they don't. But as far as this game goes, I'm with you. I think Dak and Micah Parsons are just going to go out there and do their thing each on the side of the ball. I think the Packer defense is okay. It's, probably middle of the pack if I had to guess, but I think Dak and them are going to be ready. They've been humming, especially at home, and they felt they'd had a really nice win last week to get to this point and get that 2 seed. I think they're ready to go. I think the Packers with Love at quarterback are just a little too young, and I think the Cowboys get a big win, 35-17.
Packers overall, just so you know, rating to your point, not that great. 21 overall on defense compared to the fourth best offense in the league, and who are on a completely other level when they're at home as well. So, I'm with you. I think they're going to keep it closer than people think. 35-17 is a good score. I think it's going to be a little closer because I do think that Jordan Love is. I know I was talking shit about him earlier in the season, but he's really solidified himself as a legit starter. I think this game kind of shows it. They do lose. Micah and that defense are going to be hunting, bro. Micah is a monster. Cowboys win 31-21. I think they kind of take the gas off, the pedal off the gas a little bit once they get like maybe a big lead, and then maybe get like a back end touchdown and make it instead of 31-14, 31-21 kind of thing. So I'm with you though. Cowboys should take this one.
Haven't covered the spread of 7.5. So
yeah, very true, very true. You know what? Maybe we should. Let's do a secret one after this so we don't tell everybody what we're doing because we don't be embarrassed. But maybe we should do like a little mini I got 5 on it this week, huh?
Oh yeah. All right. I'm down.
All right, let's think about that. We'll think about that. We'll let you guys know on Monday if we do it and then how we do.
And if we don't talk about it on Monday, then we either didn't do it
then we didn't do it or we did bad.
We don't want to
very bad. But we'll move on from there. Well, the more NFC matchup before we get to the Monday night game is the Rams and the Lions. This one I'm super. Yeah, this one I'm pretty stoked about, to be honest with you. Because of this game is one of them. How freaking rigged is the NFL with these damn matchups in week 1, dude? Like, come on. Texans and Browns. Oh, where did Deshaun Watson play? Oh, wow, they got that. Oh, wow, that's so crazy. Rams, Lions. Oh, look at the trade. They traded each other. That's so crazy, too. I mean, Tyreek coming back to freaking Kansas City. Oh, wow, who would have thought that would happen? It's just freaking. Packers and Mike really McCarthy. Weird. It's just freaking, it's insane. And this is one of the biggest ones to me because of the quarterback being obviously the main position. This is definitely my favorite game of the weekend. I'm really curious how the Lions handle the playoff pressure, right? Because they're hosting it, which is it's their first playoff game since 2016, their first home game since the 93-94 season, and the first home game ever at Ford Field.
Yep.
Because I think it was made in like 2000 or 2002 or something like that. Stafford back to Detroit, definitely rigged. I think the Rams gonna take it, but I think they're gonna try to keep it close. I'll save my score for after you kind of tell me what you're thinking.
Well, the fact that the spread is only a 3-point favorite for the Lions, which essentially means it's a toss-up because as the home team, you usually get 3 points. So this is basically a toss-up as far as Vegas is concerned. But yeah, I'm with you. This is the biggest story and storyline as far as the matchup between Goff and going against his old coach McVay and the Rams, and then Stafford having the first home game the Lions host in Ford Field in the playoffs is with Stafford, but he's on the other team instead of being a Lion in this case. I just think that's weird. Goff gets a chance to show the Rams, even though he got them to a Super Bowl, they didn't win one. He has an opportunity to show them that maybe he can lead a team to another Super Bowl. The weird thing to me, though, is this story about Kelly Stafford and how Lions fans have basically been telling other Lions fans to not wear Matthew Stafford Lions jerseys to the game. They don't want anybody to have any kind of I kind of
get that a little bit.
I mean, if he was retired, it'd be one thing, but the fact that he's active and going against you kind of makes it a little strange. And
I kind of
got a little sad about it and posted the whole thing about I can't believe we had such a good thing in Detroit and we love Detroit. It's like, well, yeah, it's not that they
No,
don't
it's not
like
against you.
They
Right.
just don't want you to
Yeah.
win. So they're trying to tell their fans, like, don't give you any reason or give Stafford or the Rams any reason to think that they're in your heads. Like, just go there, root for the Lions, do your thing. But I'm with you, man. The only reason I'm picking the Lions to win this game is because I think the Ram defense, although it is very good, especially with Donald up front, it's very young on the back half. And they're kind of prone to giving up big plays. Right. And I think with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think Laporta is as healthy the last I read today, and he's supposed to play. So I think the Lion offense is going to come out, and they're going to be out there to prove. I think a lot of those guys on that team, too, want to play for Goff and not just win the game in general, but they want to show the Rams that they made the wrong decision by getting rid of him. Not that they didn't make the right decision because they won their own Super Bowl with Stafford.
Super Bowl, but yeah.
But you got to think for Goff and that team, and they've been humming all year on offense, so they obviously like him and play for him. So I think this is where it kind of shows up. And I think they're going to win, but it's going to be close. I think it's 27-20. And don't be shocked if the Rams have the ball last and have an opportunity to get down, and somehow Aiden Hutchinson gets a big sack and ends up ending it all for the Rams.
Yeah, I see this going a tad bit differently. The way I'm reading, and I agree with like most of your points, actually, especially the guys kind of rallying around Goff. This is my only thing. Sean McVay knows all of Jared Goff's weaknesses. That's why he got rid of him, because he didn't want him, right? So he's going to know exactly what he needs to do to exploit, which is, even if you're not getting sacks, hit him, touch him, make him feel you, because that's going to make him, quote unquote, see ghosts and kind of throw it away. I think having the more veteran and better quarterback, this is absolutely no shade at Jared Goff. I actually kind of like the guy, but Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback for sure. I think the game plan between, oh my gosh, why did I forget his name? What's the freaking coach's name?
Huh? Dan Campbell, right?
Yeah, Dan Campbell. Yeah, between Dan Campbell and Sean McVay are light years apart. And this is not even a shot at Dan Campbell. He just doesn't have the experience of, I don't know, winning a Super Bowl and going and losing by 3 to the Patriots previously in another one. I think it's actually funny that they both have the winning team scoring 27. I have the Rams winning 27-21 is how I kind of have it. So
it's funny you bring up Campbell too. Now that I think about it, Campbell is more of an emotional person as far as when it comes to coaching compared to McVay, who's more tactical and robotic about it. So that could come into play down near the end of the game. It could be a long 4th and 3 that's you're kind of in between. You can't kick a field goal, but you can. That's honestly the biggest thing too for me is the Rams kicking game. They brought Maher
back.
You
know what? Not a bad point.
He missed, I think, a field goal last week. He almost missed an extra point, if not missed one later. So if it comes down to a game-winning field goal, or they need to drive down and it's a 2 or 3 point game, I'm nervous for Maher and what they can do, and maybe that kind of changes the way McVay goes about things. Like, I mean, don't be shocked if they get a game-tying touchdown late, and instead of sending the kicker out there, maybe bring Carson Wentz out to do a 2-point conversion like he did in San Francisco last week. Like, Wentz looked good.
All right, yeah, what? I can see that. I can see the kicker blowing it for sure.
Yeah, and McVay, again, is very tactical and knows exactly what he wants to do. So maybe that's something he keeps in his back pocket as an emergency thing or whatever. But, yeah, with Maher there, it kind of does scare me a little bit for the Rams if it comes down to a field goal possibly at the end of the game.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I'm still sticking with the Rams. I think that they're the better overall team. But, dude, if it comes down to the kicker. Oof.
You almost had me switch, man. I literally, as you were talking about McVay and Campbell, I was like, oh, wait, maybe I'm not going to pick the Lions. But I'm still going to stick. I'm going to stick with the Lions.
All right, cool. That's the only one that we're, I think, different on so far. And maybe I think the only one for this whole weekend. As we move into that Monday night game that you were talking about, Eagles going to Tampa. The 11-6 Eagles visiting the 9-8 Buccaneers. But, hey, win your division and you can host the game. You don't win the division, you're on the road. And that's basically where the Eagles are. Eagles, dude. I don't know. I have them obviously in the Super Bowl. I had them losing to the Bengals, who aren't even in the playoffs. We'll get to that in a moment. Before we get too much, we're going to try to cover some of our preseason picks. I just don't get how they fell so far, man. I think they're lucky to be playing the Bucs in the first round, who barely snuck in by winning their division at 9-8. And I think that's pretty much as far as they were going to go. But I do have them winning this game. I have them the Bucs putting up somewhat of a fight, though. I'll save my prediction again for the score in a moment, but I think the Eagles get lucky in this one.
I feel the exact same. They're lucky they're playing Tampa. Baker is still struggling with that rib injury, and I don't even think he practiced yesterday even still as well. And although Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a ball apparently all week because of his fingers. So this is
all crooked.
This is a very weird matchup as far as the quarterbacks go. The only feeling I have about the Eagles is even though their defense is not great, it is better than the Buccaneers offense. I mean, the Buccaneers won last week against the Panthers 9-0. So obviously against, and not that the Panthers defense isn't bad. We went over that. It's a pretty solid defense considering how bad the rest of the team is. But against them. You only get 9 points when you're playing for your playoff life in an NFC South crown. Like, I just don't have any faith in them, even though it's a home game. Again, the Eagles, like you said, are lucky that this is their first round matchup. I think they're going to go in there and win it. For some reason, I just feel like Baker's going to the Eagles' defensive line is their best attribute as far as that side of the ball. So if they can get to Baker and hit him a couple times, like you talked with Goff, even if you don't sack him, hit him, knock him down, make him feel you. If that rib starts acting up or he's got any injury or pain that he's trying to play with, it might look like Michael Penix against Michigan the other night where he could not breathe, he couldn't throw. Everything was off just by a foot or two here and there, and I think that's going to be the case here, and the Eagles are going to, kind of win big in a sense, 27-10. For me, I feel like it's a big spread, even though it's a 3-point favorite for the Eagles.
Okay, I can see that. I'm actually changing my score as we speak because the more I'm thinking about it, I don't think they're going to score that many points. The overall,
you almost convinced me to change my lines pick, and I just convinced you to change your score pick.
Definitely, I'm still picking the Eagles, but I do have the Bucks scoring a little bit less points. When I look at the Pro Football Focus, I see that the Bucks are 24th rated overall offense, while the Eagles are the 13th rated overall defense. That is where defense does, in my opinion, win championships, even in this very heavy offensive league. I think they're going to win. I'm 23-13. I had them scoring another touchdown, but I'm taking that touchdown away and just giving them 1 field goal. So they get 2 field goals and a touchdown, 23-13. Eagles take it, move on. But I do think that might be the end of the road for them, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. And unless they come out and somehow have solved all their issues and look like the team they did earlier in the year when they were 10-1, and that, well, really the first half of that season, the first like 7 or 8 weeks, they looked really good, and then they started kind of playing really terrible. But yeah, if they come out and play and win big, then I might feel differently when we do our picks for the second week of the playoffs. But I'm with you. I think this is their only win because depending on who they have to go to next could completely change how they're going to go about things.
So that's kind of how we see the playoffs shaking out, at least this Super Wildcard Weekend round. But we wanted to do something a little to see kind of, how we did in predicting what has happened at the beginning of this season. We're going to kind of go over quickly what we had picked as far as, the order, because we went 1 through 7 for both the NFC and the AFC. And let's kind of see how it kind of shook out. You want to go first?
Mind you, these picks were back in August before the regular season even started. So
yes, very true.
But it is what it is. So as far as the NFC goes, these are my picks that I had, and then I'll go over the ones obviously I got right, or most of them I got wrong. I had the Niners at the number 1 seed, which got that one right.
Correct.
I did have Philly winning the division and being the 2 seed. Now they didn't win the division, but they are in the playoffs, so I kind of got half right there. Okay. I did have the Saints winning the NFC South, so that did not.
Yeah, well,
they did have a chance the last weekend, so I don't feel terrible that they lost 2 games or anything. I feel a little bit better about that. This is the one that really hurts me. I picked Minnesota to win the North, which once Cousins went down, they never had a chance. They were rotating quarterbacks all season.
This was the Lions' year.
Yeah, I debated on them too. I went back and forth between Minnesota and Detroit, and I'm kind of mad I didn't go Detroit. The other one I had in the wild cards, I had the Giants, which obviously that didn't pan out at all.
Yeah, you picked better than me, bro.
And then I had the Seahawks, which again, they were battling for a wild card, so I feel a little good about that one. And then I did have the Lions as the 7 seed, just getting in as the last wild card. So I was wrong about their placement because they won the North, but I at least had them in the playoffs. So I got 3 of the 7 teams correct, only one of them in the correct seeding in the NFC. So
that's not bad. And if you think about it, right, let's look at it this way. Minnesota, while they didn't win the division, there was another NFC North team in. So you were kind of right about the NFC. And Seattle, there was another NFC West team in. It just wasn't Seattle. So, kind of give yourself a little bit of a break there. The NOLA and the Giants, that one, we kind of screwed that one up because that's where I had 2. Before we move to the AFC, I'll take the NFC real quick as well. So I had San Fran as the number 1 in the NFC, right about that one. I had NOLA at number 2. I thought they were going to have a lot better year. That was incorrect. I had the Giants because I told you, I knew that the NFC East does not have repeat winners. I just picked the wrong team. I thought the Cowboys were going to find a way to blow it, and that the Giants would be, because obviously the Commanders were kind of out of it. They just didn't seem to be competing this year. So I thought the Giants were going to take a huge step with Brian Daboll. He's a great coach, at least on the offensive side. That didn't quite work out. I had the Bears. Thought Justin Fields was going to turn his season around and his career around. That didn't really happen, so I had them at 4. That was wrong. Philly, I had actually number 5, which I only really lucked into because I knew they weren't going to win their division. So I got that one right. I also had the Vikings doing something. I think they were a more well-rounded team. I think injuries, both to Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, really derailed their entire season, besides obviously the fact that the Lions had a great one.
Yeah.
And then I had America's team, but haven't won in nearly 30 years. The Cowboys sneaking in as the 7th seed behind the G-Men and Philly. That one was correct. So I got 3 right, 2 correct spots, number 1 and number 5.
So you win the NFC preseason picks.
Okay, I'll take that one. Who you got for the AFC, man?
All right, so this is where I had a good amount of teams, but I didn't get any seeding right. I had the Chiefs repeating as the number 1 seed, which obviously we know that didn't happen. I had the Ravens winning the North and getting the 2 seed, so I feel good about that one. At least I had them near the top, and not too bad. And then I had the Jets winning the AFC East. Obviously,
we thought, bro.
Yeah, when Rodgers goes down week 1, it's
4 snaps
for them to figure it out. 4 plays too, not on top, make it worse. And as much as it hurt me to do this one, I did have the Jags actually winning the AFC South for the 2nd year in a row, but they didn't even make the playoffs, so that hurt. And then wild cards, I had the Bengals, which obviously once Burrow was hurt, and I mean he really started the year off hurt and then just got more hurt later, so that never was going to happen, it seems like. And then I had the Bills as the 6, which again they made it. They could have been the 6 if they would have lost to Miami, so I would have gotten that one right. But oh well. And then I did have the Browns actually sneaking in as the 7.
You did.
I got 4 teams in the playoffs correct, but I didn't get any of the seeding right in this side.
Well, it's a little better than me. I had no seeding correct either in the AFC. I was with you. I was riding with Patrick Mahomes. I thought they didn't need Tyreek Hill, so they don't need really anybody. But apparently they do need Eric Bieniemy because that offense can't do anything. So I had the Chiefs at 1, didn't pan out. I did have the Bengals going to the Super Bowl and them needing to basically be a number 1 or 2 seed to kind of fulfill that. I had them at the 2. Didn't even make the playoffs. Burrow's injury, well, a slow start 1, and then Burrow's injury 2 is just obviously derailed the whole season. I was with you. I thought Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, as much as you don't like to admit it, we're going to have a great season. I had them at the 3 seed. Incorrect. Didn't even make the playoffs. Blew it at the end. I had the Dolphins winning the AFC East at the 4 seed. Just because they were going to be, kind of beating up on each other. I had thought the Jets were going to be a little bit better, even though they did actually. I think they went 7-10, so that's not terrible for a no quarterback team. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I'm thinking that incorrectly. I did have your team. Didn't think they were going to have so many struggles this year. Just they seem to always figure something out. So I had them in at the 5, Jets at the 6 because I just thought this AFC East was going to be killing it. It was actually the AFC North, so I was wrong. And then the Bills at the 7. So I got 3 right, so you win the AFC East one, huh?
Woo!
Or AFC one, not AFC East. Sorry.
I'll take it.
But we were pretty bad about picking the placement. That's okay, though. I think going back to August when you don't know injuries and all this types of stuff, I don't think this is too bad of a pick, especially like we talked about for you. A lot of those were really in it late, too.
Yeah. So. And if you look at our Super Bowl picks of who we had matching up based on those seeds that we had.
Okay, well, you're the only one who really can do anything. I'm screwed.
Well, no, not you're technically alive, but I did have the Niners playing the Ravens and the Ravens winning, which could still happen. You did have the Eagles playing the Bengals and the Bengals winning, which obviously that part can't happen. But
not happening.
If they get hot somehow, some way in this playoffs, they could still make the Super Bowl. So you could be half right. But as we said, we don't trust the Eagles right now. So
not right now. So the Super Bowl matchups, that's kind of good. That's kind of good. You're still very alive for that one. The 2 best teams, obviously, the 2 most, I think, favorites to win from each respective conference. I think you're riding pretty high on that one, dude. That was great foresight back in August, man.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question then. So if right now we're looking at the 14 teams in the playoffs, if we were to do a bet on it, would you rather have the Niners and Ravens as the 2 teams that could possibly win, or would you rather take the field?
That's good. That's a great question. It's hard to bet against the 2 best teams in the NFL. The only thing is any given Sunday, right? Not any team can beat any team, in my opinion. I don't think that like who's it? I don't think the Bills are gonna go and beat the Ravens in Baltimore. So I don't think that the Steelers can. Beside me, they probably won't get past the first round. But I don't think that every team can beat every team. But if I had to pick, I honestly would probably take the field, just because I get more options. And just because you're the number one doesn't mean anything, especially that first game after 3 weeks off is something else. It's because most teams, obviously, they're sitting the one and they have a bye and then a whole nother week until they play again. So it's basically 3 weeks off. It's a little scary. Even Kyle Shanahan admitted himself doesn't really like having that much time off. Yeah. That's probably the only hiccup. But I do think both teams are great. I would just pick the field because I'm a betting man. That's pretty much it. What about you?
Honestly, I think I'd take the two of them.
Sticking with yours?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think those two teams, even though with the buys, I think the fact that the Niners have been here before as a 1 seed and had a bye previously with Shanahan, I think they'll be more prepared. They've been to the Super Bowl as a team as well. A lot of these guys have been there before, so I think they'll be more prepared. The Ravens one, I'm a little more hesitant because the last time the Ravens were the 1 seed, pretty sure the Titans went in there and beat them in the playoffs. So I do feel a little worried about that one, but again, I feel like this is the Ravens' year in general because I feel like with Lamar Jackson, the season he had, and after coming off the contract situation and issue, they lost a lot of their running backs early on in the year, but they've just kind of figured out a way. The new offensive coordinator and Lamar has been on a better page together and just seem to be doing their thing. So I feel better about the Niners, a little less about the Ravens, even though they're my pick.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out. That's for sure. It's going to be an exciting wild card weekend, and make sure you turn into the episode early next week, either Monday or Tuesday. We haven't talked about it yet, but most likely Monday to kind of go over everything, and we will be able to quickly recap the game that we would have just watched, which will be that Eagles-Bucks game on Monday night.
Yeah, which Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so I'm off. So I'm down to record after that game on Monday if you are.
Perfect. Let's do it. I think I'll have a slow day. The banks are closed, but I do have to work. That's for sure. But yeah, Martin Luther King Day. That is a huge day for basketball, to be honest with you, right? That's like They make it a thing. Hey, I'm all for equal rights and civil rights. I'm glad that rest in peace. I'm not glad that he got shot. That's kind of messed up.
No, yeah,
but I'm glad that we celebrate. I'm glad that we celebrate his life. Right, correct, exactly. So, we'll transition to the NBA with that though. There's a couple things that have happened. Quick update. Let's start with Tyrese because of the injury. The Tyrese Haliburton, we played on our last episode. If you haven't seen it on YouTube, we actually show the injury as it happened. Tyrese kind of did the splits when playing the Celtics the other night. We got an update. Basically, he went on the MRI on Tuesday, revealed a grade 1 left hamstring strain. It's likely going to be out per Woj about 2 weeks. But he definitely avoided something way more serious, which is good because I'm not a fan of injuries. So
the way he landed, I thought for sure his knee might have tweaked and done something else. So the fact that it's just a hamstring thing. But my only issue with the hamstring thing is once you have a hamstring issue, you're never really going to get it back to where it was until after the season's over and you really have time to sit down and like really rehab it. So I hope they don't rush him back and then he ends up tweaking it again. But it's good to see that it's nothing major and he will be playing again this season.
Yeah. So, that's true. I mean, it's not quite like football where you have that in me, but these fools are running back and forth all game long. So, to your point, a lot of times it heals with tons of rest. So, wanted to kind of get everybody that update before we dive into some of the other craziness that's going around the NBA.
Oh, big money.
Big money, bro. But honestly, dude, he really deserves it. He's one of the most underrated coaches in the league. Eric Spoelstra signs huge extension with the Miami Heat. Started in their freaking film room and has been doing work, man. Obviously, multiple champion. And he takes teams that nobody thinks should do anything and takes them all the way to the NBA Finals. So 8 years, $120 million. Whew.
Man. And you know what? It's crazy to me, too, the fact that he's been coaching as long as he has, because he obviously coached the 4 years that the Heatles were in the finals and won 2 of those. Mm-hmm. He's took the Heat to the final in the bubble against the Lakers. He took the Heat to the final last year against Denver. So he's been to 6 finals as a coach, and it wasn't just all with LeBron and Wade in them. Right. So you have to give him credit. He knows what he's doing. The whole Heat culture thing, he is a part of that. He is the reason they are as good as they are and are able to make some of these undrafted guys play really well. Also, he's only 53, so he's going to be there a while, even just beyond this 8-year deal, I'm sure. I don't think they're going to ever let him walk away unless he absolutely says, I can't do this anymore. He's going to be there probably until he's like 60 or 70, like Pop, and just keep going because everyone who plays for him there tends to love being a part of that organization, and as long as Pat is running things, it's going to be the same way with him and Pat forever. And, I no bad thing to say about Spoelstra at all.
Yeah, no, don't have really much to add for what you said. You've kind of said it all. I think he's a great coach. And like I said, I think he takes teams that people just don't think. I mean, granted, if you're in the NBA, you're talented, right? Yeah. I mean, but there are tiers to the talent. So the fact that he's able to kind of take mid-tier talent and make it top-tier talent. That's no knock on Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, or I'm not saying they're mid-tier, but I'm just saying the overall thought of the Heat is it's their culture and their hard work that really gets them to where they are.
Yep, absolutely. Which, you talk about hard work and getting paid. Man, Kawhi Leonard got paid the other day too. I did not see this coming. I know they had talked about how the season started and him and Paul George hadn't had extensions yet, but Kawhi gets a 3-year, $152 million deal and like fully guaranteed. No, opt-outs or anything. It's a full 3 years. Now there is a 15% trade kicker if for some reason they decide to do that. I would assume he'd have to okay it. So I think that's kind of weird that it's even in there. But the Clippers, I knew there's no way they were going to go into It Dome next year, their new stadium, without having Kawhi and Paul George. Obviously, there's talk of Paul George is in line for the extension next, and they're trying to figure that out. But I mean, $52 million next year, and then $50 million each the year after that. If I'm Kawhi, I mean, what did we talk about yesterday? He's 33. Is that what we discussed? I think?
Yes.
I mean, I'm happy for him to get paid and the Clippers to continue doing what they're doing because it's not producing anything besides just playoff appearances. But
fantastic, yes.
I don't know, man. I just it is what it is. I guess it's just the Clippers. I don't really think too much of it beyond the fact that they gave him a bunch of money. They're gonna have to give a bunch of money to PG. They're gonna have to give a bunch of money to Harden in the offseason if they're gonna keep him. Which Harden, Kawhi yesterday in the post game when asked about it said that he took a little bit of a discount compared to what he could have gotten as a free agent in the offseason. So that hopefully they can continue and help all those guys come back. But with the new salary cap rules and everything next year, they're going to be paying probably him, Paul George, and Harden all $50 million apiece. And then they're paying, I think we talked about, $18 million to Norman Powell. So that's basically 170, which is the cap for next season. So I don't know how they're going to fill the rest of the roster or what's going to happen to Russell Westbrook in the offseason. But again, Clippers just signing him to sign him and have him, I guess, to go into the new building more than anything else.
Yeah, no, you definitely need him, dude. I mean, he's the best player on this team. He's not the most consistent player on the team. I would give that to Paul George. His injury history and his just weirdness is kind of something. And I'm sure that he could take a lot of money in free agency. But let's not pretend like he gave them some fat discount, okay? I mean, $52 million next year. He's only making 46 this year, so he's getting a $6 million increase. He's 29% of the cap this year. He's going to be 34% of the cap next year. Where is this discount that you're talking about? You've only increased your value and the amount of percentage of the cap that you take. And to your point, I think Paul George, right now they have the same exact contract. They're both getting paid about $46 million this year. If I think it's 45.6. I have a feeling that Paul George is going to be like, bro, we're like one and the same, man. You can't have one of us without the other. I'm not taking any less. I have a feeling he's going to be looking for $50 million a year as well, just like you were saying.
Absolutely.
The only thing that I kind of disagree with, which is unfortunate, unless the freaking Clippers just do something crazy, but I don't think they're stupid. I don't think they're geniuses anymore because they used to their front office used to be on fire, to be honest with you, and I used to hate it. But you and I talked about this last night. As much as Harden may want $50 million, the Clippers look at the landscape. Where the hell else would Harden get this kind of money?
Yeah,
you were rambling through the teams last night. There's not a lot of people that necessarily need or even want James Harden, especially with his, kind of prima donna-esque, the way he was acting in Brooklyn, the way he was acting in Philly. I mean, he's a great player sometimes. He's not the peak James Harden he was when he was playing for the Rockets, basically ripping off MVPs left and right, leading the league in scoring and assists at the same time sometimes. He's not that same guy, but I think he thinks he is and still wants that same money. So I think that's going to be probably the hardest one. I know that they as in Paul George and Kawhi want him there to kind of run the show. And as we can see, it's been doing well so far this season. And obviously, the biggest thing is how James Harden performs in the playoffs and how the rest of the team kind of fills out. But I think it's going to be weird. I don't see the money that Kawhi really saved them. But like you said, I don't really care. I hope they waste it all and can't build a team around it.
The one seed, lose in the first or second round, and just completely blow it up and do what you got to do. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, the only thing that I would take with a grain of salt in all of it is Ty Lue does know how to coach. So he might be able to figure something out regardless of what pieces he's got. And going into that new arena with the most bathrooms in the league, they're going to be wanting to make sure that they defend that home court. Those toilets are something. All right.
Dude, I love the fact that ESPN LA sometimes when they talk about the Clippers, they play the clip of him just yelling toilets like in the background all the time because that's all Intuit Dome is talking about is they're going to have so many bathrooms, toilets. Good
for them. Toilets. Good for them. Enough about the stupid Clippers. don't want to talk about them anymore. A couple more things that we've seen. I actually saw a report that looks like the Kings making Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, and Davion Mitchell available. I think it's a little early for Davion. I think he's a great guard. That is a great defensive guard that people are scoring 130, 150, 100 point. You need defense sometimes. I get that, they call fouls all the dang time, and so you can't really play it. But I think he's really good. Kevin Huerter as a spot up sniper for three, as De'Aaron Fox drives and can kick out, and Harrison Barnes as the veteran presence. I don't understand this quite too much, but again, I don't run an NBA organization. True. What do you think about them making these guys available?
I kind of get the Harrison Barnes thing. I feel like it's kind of, he's a little older, and he's okay. The biggest thing with me is the Davion Mitchell one. I don't get that at all because, like you said, he's a great defensive player, and the Kings don't play defense as it is as a team. So why would you get rid of one of your better defenders if you can't already play defense? Like, as much as they are good and they score a lot of points, if you score 130 but you give up 140 every game, you're going to lose more than win, especially come playoff time when everything slows down and it's about defense more so than offense. So I don't get that.
You swallow the whistle a lot more in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And I'm with you with the Kevin Huerter thing. Like, that guy is a dead-eye shooter. I don't know why you would get rid of him and not let him be your Klay Thompson in a sense in that system, because Mike Brown is kind of running the same thing they run in Golden State. But I get the Harrison Barnes thing. I just don't know what they would be able to get for him. So maybe that's probably why they have to maybe package him with one of these other guys to get something they think will make a difference for them. But at the end of the day, the Kings are kind of like the Clippers. Like, they're good right now in the regular season. They're not as good as the Clippers, but they're kind of in that realm of they're good now, but come playoff time, we'll see what happens.
I think that's actually a good point about the Kevin Huerter, similar to Klay Thompson. And Davion Mitchell, we talk about it with the Clippers, right? I mean, with the Clippers. Get that stupid team out of my head. We talk about it with the Lakers, even though they just got their ass handed to them tonight by the Suns.
Yeah.
We're looking for somebody to put next to D'Angelo Russell or put next to a point guard that can defend. We're looking for the Carusos that might be out there, or the DeJounte Murrays who can play defense. Well, put next to De'Aaron Fox, you're going to need a guard that can guard.
Yeah.
I think it's a little early to give up on Davion Mitchell. Maybe he's not as good as they need him to be offensively, and that's like what you were saying with the Mike Brown-led offense, looking to kind of replicate what Golden State can do. But I think it's a little early on that.
Yeah, and
in my opinion.
The other thing too is the Warriors, after their last two home games getting completely blown out and run off the court, really. There's talk of them making basically everyone available except Steph, which I understand, but also it might be too late anyway. Like, there's no way you're going to get enough pieces and kind of plug and chug into the system that you guys have and have an opportunity to make the playoffs. So you're going to trade everybody at that point. Maybe even just sit Steph and let him kind of get ready for next year. I don't know what to expect with the Warriors. I know Draymond has been reinstated. He hasn't played yet, but he has been reinstated to get back on the court once he is, in game shape and ready to go. I would assume in the next couple games, but Klay has just not been himself. He's older. The two injuries that he had a couple years ago have really started to show. Looney is good, but again, not great. He's his knees are a little scary. I feel like sometimes watching him play, he kind of looks like Dirk that last year, where he could barely walk up and down the court at times. So I don't know what the Warriors are going to do, but again, when dynasties come to an end, they tend to end messy.
Yeah. And this one is kind of not, doing very great right now. What did they lose by 36 to the Pelicans last night?
Yeah, and then Toronto 2 days before that beat them by like 20. I mean, they just and the worst part is after the Toronto game, Kerr said that we need to come back next game and show that we're trying and give some more effort, because obviously we didn't do that tonight. And then the next 2 nights later, they completely looked even worse against the Pelicans. Now, the Pelicans are really good compared to Toronto, so I guess I'll give them a little bit of a break there, but you can't let them come into your building and beat you by 35
that much.
36. That is just out of control.
Losing is one thing, but not playing is another.
Yep, absolutely. You can't coach effort.
No. Moving on from the NBA, though, we got a couple notes before we get out of here on Major League Baseball. Some things have happened today that and over the past couple days. You want to start with the Cubs?
Man, the Cubs making some moves. Yeah, they signed Shota. I'm going to try to say this last name if I get it right. Amanaga, who's a pitcher over from Japan. He did coach or pitch in the World Baseball Classic. He's a lefty pitcher, so he's 30 years old, so he's not young like Yamamoto is, but he's also not as dominant as Yamamoto, but he's been very good over in Japan. He posted a 3.1 ERA, over 1,000 strikeouts, and over 1,000 innings in the 165 games he's pitched in. But he's also more of a finesse pitcher. It's not all fastballs. It's going to be more about how to hit the corners. Although his last year in Japan, he did have his best year probably. 174 strikeouts, a 2.8 ERA, and 149 innings.
Ooh.
So now how it transitions over to the MLB is always the biggest question. But if you're the Cubs, you got him at 4 years, 53, possibly 5 years, 80 with an option on the back end if the Cubs pick it up. It's not a terrible amount of money. It's not like you gave him $300 million or anything.
Yeah, granted. I mean, to your point, the age difference is something alone, but yeah, definitely not as much as what the Dodgers are shelling out. Well, actually, they're not even really shelling it out because they're just going to pay it sometime later.
Defer it in 20 years.
If you want to hear Corey's rant about deferment, go check out our previous episode as well.
Man, I've
made some pretty good points as to why it's pretty dumb.
Episodes. Yikes! I'm being angry lately. I need to calm down.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of crazy stuff happening, especially when it has to do with your team, like Mike Vrabel. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We'll stick with the Cubs. And speaking of the Cubs and the Dodgers, they actually made a trade today. Cubs get first baseman Michael Busch. They also take right-handed pitcher Yency Almonte. Cubs send 2 prospects to the Dodgers, one of them actually being, I believe, a left-handed pitcher. This one was kind of funny to me. I'm sure you probably saw this all over the internet today. His name is Jackson Ferris, and they already have a Walker Buehler. So right now they have Ferris Bueller.
I did not think about that until you said it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so the Dodgers now have Ferris Bueller on their team. Not the gentleman from the movie, but they have somebody named Ferris and somebody named Bueller. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That's great. I think the bigger thing though, because when I first saw this trade, I was like, okay, Michael Busch is a top 2, I think number 2 prospect at some point in their system. He's a first baseman, but they don't really know where to fit him in their lineup, so they brought him up and sent him back down. So that was part of it. And Almonte, I think, had like 5 or 6 years in the league as a relief pitcher, so he's okay. But I was wondering, like, well, what is the reason to make this move? But everyone keeps talking about that by doing this, they've opened up a spot on their 40-man roster, which means something else is coming. I don't know who or what.
It's that pitcher, I'm telling you.
But they're making another move to. Oh God, I hope they don't get Blake Snell or something crazy on the pitching staff, or even trade for Dylan Cease from Chicago or Corbin Burns from Milwaukee. That's like the 2 names
they're
that they
going. They're buying a World Series, bro. I'm telling you now. They're going 1,000% in. Obviously,
well,
I hope that doesn't happen. I hope but I mean, it's kind of hard to not see it this way. I mean, they're stacking more than you could be stacked. The only person that could mess this up is Dave Roberts, to be honest with you.
Well, let's hope Dave Roberts does his thing and messes it up, because I'd love to see the Diamondbacks go back to the World Series and win it this year instead of last year.
Whoop, whoop. That'd be pretty cool.
But
moving on, though,
about like spending all the money to buy a World Series and try to get a title, which most teams, and really since 2000, no team besides the Yankees in 2009 had the highest payroll to win. So it's not a common thing. But Yankees made a nice move today, getting Marcus Stroman for 2 years, 37, to kind of put probably in the 4 spot in their rotation.
For a Cub.
Yeah, it'll be a nice. I think it's a nice ad for the Yankees. They need pitching, and now you have Cole at the top. You have Nestor Cortez. You now have Stroman. Who Stroman in his 10-year career actually is 77 and 76 with a 3.65 ERA. So as long as
can't count the wins, but the ERA is decent.
Yeah, but if you can go 500 or better as the 4th starter in the rotation, and the Yankees have the offense they are expecting to have with now Soto there and Aaron Judge, he'll probably end up getting 13 to 14 wins if he can keep his ERA in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I think Marcus Stroman's it's a big name. It's a big enough name to fill the pinstripes. People in New York love the names. They got to get it. They got to get the Sotos.
He's from, I believe, the Bronx or somewhere around there originally as a kid.
Oh, good for him.
He did pitch for the Mets for a couple years back. So
yeah, I remember
he's
that.
Very comfortable in New York. He's going to fit that clubhouse really well.
Yeah, that'll be good. More teams though that making some moves. This one is not necessarily with the players on the field, but with some personnel. You found this story, so I'll kind of let you kind of tell it a little bit. I think you've read a little bit more than me. Marlins hired Rachel Balkovich as their director of player development.
Yeah.
What about her?
I'm super excited about this. She actually is the second woman to join the Marlins as an executive at some point, although Kim Nee.
The GM, right?
Yeah, she did resign because of the whole, what they wanted to put somebody above her. But she's been working around MLB for a long time. In 2019, she was hired by the Yankees as a minor league hitting coach, becoming the first woman to do so full time. And then in 22, they made her the first full-time manager for the low A Tampa Tarpons. She remained in that role through 2023. They went 61 and 67, 61 and 69. So a 500 ball club, which is completely respectable, especially when you're in lower A. You got a lot of kids that are still trying to figure out what they're doing and how to play. She's coached in the Netherlands, the Australian Baseball League. She spent time which I thought this was super interesting. She did spend time researching eye tracking for hitters and hip movement for pitchers at a data-driven performance center, which is called Driveline Baseball. So I think she's done a lot of work to show that she knows what she's doing, even though she hasn't played the sport herself. And we talked about it yesterday when we were prepping this. One of the people that we both really enjoy listening to talk about baseball, which most people probably would think was strange, is Jessica Mendoza, who played softball and was one of the best softball players in probably the history of the U.S. And she knows a lot about hitting. So listening to her talk about and kind of break down hitting and what they do for baseball players has been great. So to see a woman get an opportunity to, be an executive in baseball, and the more and more they keep doing this across sports, just shows that, baseball is for everyone. Hockey is for everyone. Like, if you know your stuff, then we can hire you and you can do the job. It doesn't matter what you do or who you are when you're off the field or off the court or whatever sport we're talking about. As long as you know your stuff and can show up and do your work, happy to have you here. And it's exciting. I think it's a big step for baseball.
I'm hoping that it's not, because I do agree with you wholeheartedly on pick the best person. What I hate in today's society, and I'm not against equal opportunity, is picking because of who someone is as opposed to what they can do. So if this female pans out, fantastic. If it doesn't, it shouldn't be. It's probably not because she's a woman. It's because it just wasn't the right fit. Yeah. So we'll see how it kind of pans out from here. Great for that, but I like the idea.
We talk about that all the time. When you get drafted in the NBA or NFL or whatever, it's not that you're not a good player. It's the system or the opportunity that presents itself based on the organization you become a part of. So she was part of the Yankees, and the Yankees obviously know what they're doing. Yeah. They tend to hire really good people. And well, yeah, most of the time, I should say. Yeah. So obviously to give her an opportunity, and again, to manage a baseball team, even if it is lower A and have 2 seasons of about 500 and not be completely terrible, obviously she knows what she's doing. She knows the sport, done her time in different countries and different organizations. Like it talked about the eye tracking thing. She has done her work. She's not some young 22-year-old person who hasn't no experience. She definitely has put in the time and has a resume built that I think that there's no reason to argue that she shouldn't be able to give an opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity for sure, 100%. She earned it, not because it wasn't handed. That's what I like to see. That's my point. Earn it. Don't just be handed it because of female or minority color, or depending on your gender identity. You shouldn't be handed it for any of those reasons. You should hand it because you earned it, and it looks like you got the resume that earned it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good luck.
Yeah,
good luck.
Super excited for her.
That was a freaking marathon, man. I mean, we're not quite done. We got our normal Thursday one. You have your Milk Monday episode. But on Thursdays, we break down some history. So done with the normal part of the episode, but let's get into This Week in Sports History.
Let's do it.
This Week in Sports History. So this week in sports history, I know I've been limiting it to 2, but I couldn't help but make it 3. And all of them are on the same freaking day. That was the craziest part to me. 2 of them have to do with NFL playoff football, which is why I wanted to include it as we work into the wild card weekend. And one of them is actually I thought it was I didn't know that this was a thing. I had thought that it had been this way for a really long time. Well, I guess it has been for a really long time, but I didn't know the exact date that it was decided. So we're going to start with football, though. On January 8th, 2011, the Seattle Seahawks stunned the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints, winning 41-36 to open up the playoffs. Seattle, the first division winner with a losing record at 7-9, advances behind 4 touchdown passes by Matt Hasselbeck and a crazy 67-yard run by Marshawn Lynch, of which we have a video for. You want to run that real quick, bro?
Oh, yeah. This is an awesome clip. Let's check it out.
Crowd silent now, as opposed to when the Saints have the ball. Oh, look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.
That's as good an effort as I've ever seen in my life from a running back who they traded for from Buffalo. Downhill, physical, and down the field, you're going to see Matt Hasselbeck and the whole offensive line. Watch him cut it back, and you're going to see all kinds of people sprinting down the field to help him. He breaks the tackle of Shanley, runs through Sharper, runs through Adele, runs through Jabari Greer. Get off me, he says to Tracy Porter. Look all the way down the field, Hasselbeck, all the offensive linemen. Are you kidding me? Columbus is down the field. 78, Columbus, the offensive guard. The quarterback, Hasselbeck, was 30 yards down the field. Look at the hustle by Columbus. Here he is right here. Hasselbeck, Michael Williams, Locklear. Look at that. Locklear and Hasselbeck coming up from behind. Are you kidding me?
Dude, what a freaking beast, man. You could not dude, nothing could bring him down. Marshawn was getting to the end zone with that play, dude. I love that play. I will always remember that.
Gives me chills watching it every time. That crowd is insane. I think if I remember right, they said that on the Richter scale it caused an earthquake because that place was rocking so loud and crazy at the time. I mean,
12th man.
Oh, Marshawn Lynch, and then the jump in back with, just that's prime Marshawn Lynch in Seattle. Yeah. Obviously before Russell Wilson then win the Super Bowl, but what a moment. I will remember that forever. That was a great
100%
play.
100%. The next one we have actually happened on the same exact day, like I said, but 1 year later. This one was crazy, and maybe some people would think that maybe the career wasn't that great, but the idea of this play was nuts. On January 8th, 2012, Denver's Tim Tebow connects with Demaryius Thomas on an electrifying 80-yard touchdown pass on the very first play of overtime as the Broncos stun the Steelers 29-23 in an AFC wildcard game. The play, which is the longest to end a playoff game in overtime, takes only 11 seconds, which is the quickest ending in an overtime game in NFL history of any kind, playoffs or not. 11 seconds worth of overtime. Literally, touch back, say hi, one pass, go home. Done. We actually have a clip of that too. Let's roll that.
And here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30, to the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime. The new rules. You got to score 6 on the first possession to close it out. They do it on the very first play.
Yeah, that was crazy. I know he didn't really make much of his entire career, but I actually was watching that game live. I remember that one too, because I'm pretty sure I watched both of these live. I just, what else is there going to be?
Yeah, especially
while we're in college, not doing shit. Yeah, exactly. But that was a great play. Great play. I thought it was great. Kind of, again, not necessarily the longest career, but a very memorable play. And rest in peace to Demaryius, man.
Yeah, it's true. I forgot about that part. And you said you remember watching this play. I for sure remember this play. We talked about it yesterday. We looked it up to verify that it was correct. I know exactly where I was when I watched this game. My dad and I went to a USC basketball game against Arizona at the Galen Center that afternoon. When the game was over, we went to the restaurant/bar down the street, and this game was on. So we were watching this happen. And not only do I remember watching that play happen in the bar going crazy, when the game was over and we're getting ready to leave, I saw Steve Kerr there because at that time he wasn't coaching the Warriors. He was a TNT analyst, and they happened to be in town for Thursday night for a Laker game, and he, as a U of A alum, decided to stay in town and go to the Arizona USC game. So I was like 99% sure I knew that, and you looked it up last night and double-checked the date of the game, and I was like, I knew it. Yep. I knew exactly where I was for this. It was, again, I think at that time, too, the whole Tebow mania was still going, so everyone just could not believe what he just did.
Yeah, it was definitely during the heat of the Tebow mania stuff. So that was a great play. That was a great story. That's a good memory, dude. That's pretty good.
Sometimes.
The last one that we got before we get out of here. I thought this was super interesting because I just didn't think about how it all started. On January 8th again, this time 1984, taking it back a little before we were born. The executive committee of the NCAA votes to expand the championship basketball field to the 64 teams. Well, I know it's been expanded now to the play-in 68 teams, but the 64 teams that we have starting now, which started in 1985. So January 8th this week, 1984, they decided, you know what? Let's get a bunch of teams going. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Man, I didn't realize they've been playing 64 teams that long. I guess it's obviously longer than we've been alive, so I didn't realize it had happened that long ago. I figured maybe like the early 90s, but wow, and again, the fact that they've only added 4 since then is kind of crazy. You think they would have expanded it?
It's like a perfect field, though, dude, to be honest with you.
Really
the NCAA tournament is one. I mean, obviously March Madness is one of the best times of the year. Dude, and I even still like the added, the 4 extra teams. That doesn't bother me too much. I'm not fond of going back to where earlier this whole 12-team playoff. I think it's a little much. I think 8 is like a nice even number, but 12 it is. So
I think the best thing about March Madness, at least if there's not a concert or a game that day, I try to take off either that Thursday or Friday, the first 2 days, so I can just watch all the basketball I possibly can.
There's 3-4 channels, and there's no pausing from the morning till nighttime.
I got 2 TVs in the living room. I got an iPad. I got a laptop. I can watch whatever I want. The only thing that I miss about the tournament time is the Big West used to have their basketball tournament at Honda Center, and
yes, we went to those.
Alum, I would buy tickets for the first day on Thursday and go by myself and watch all 4 games. I did not care. I just wanted to watch basketball. And the last 2 years, they've taken it to Vegas, which makes no sense because none of the teams in the conference are in the state of Nevada. So that's annoying, but I get it. They get more money. It's a nicer venue, and they'd probably fill it more so than they did at Honda because even though all the teams are in California, it's hard to get students there on a Thursday in the middle of school. So it's not very crowded, which again was another reason I liked going because I could sit anywhere I wanted and watch basketball for 9 hours straight. It was awesome.
I remember that. I went to a couple with you. It was fun. Very fun. Well, that's the history that we got this week. But we do one of these basically in each one of our episodes. We got MILF Mondays where Corey drops some facts on you, and then on Thursdays we try to do This Week in Sports History. If you want to go back and check some of those out, where can they find them, man?
Yeah, you can always find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you want to watch us and all the cool things we make, or even just see our faces, you can search on YouTube and just look up Our View from the Bench.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OurViewFTB. How was the rest of your weekend looking, man? I know the Ducks are on the road, so you ain't got none of that coming up.
Another loss today, unfortunately, in Carolina. But week is looking pretty good. I'm off tomorrow, so I got some things to get done around
adult
the apartment.
Stuff.
I got a stretch lab appointment tomorrow, which is my second time, so I'm trying to do that more often, get my body kind of taken care of physically as well. And then I'm actually working a concert on Saturday at Honda. It's Alter Ego, which is iHeartRadio's like tour. It's a bunch of bands. I think it's supposed to be Paramore, but they're not coming anymore, unfortunately.
That's that concert. Yeah,
I was looking forward to that one. But Fall Out Boys replaced them, so I'm cool with that. 1975, 30 Seconds to Mars, Sum 41. Lovely the band. So a bunch of bands that I remember from probably high school and early college years. So I'm excited to just be there and listen to some old school rock and then enjoy the football weekend until we get back here on Monday to discuss and see how we did on our picks. What about you, man?
Yeah. Football, like you said, that's for sure what I'm doing this weekend. Work tomorrow, just like a normal day. But on Saturday, actually, I'm going to, I call it my cousin, but it's technically the wifey's cousin, having a baby shower. So I'm going to be heading out to HB. Actually, I'll be with you. You doing anything on Saturday?
Well, I'll be at the arena working the concert. So you'll be in HB.
Well, I would say hi. I would have said hi. But yeah, so heading out to HB, that's where he lives. Actually, remember you've hung out with him before. It's not the guy that you hung out with, but from that house, he's one of his brothers. So so that's what we're doing on Saturday, just doing that. Other than that, just literally, like you said, watching football. Got wild card weekend coming up. Obviously, college is done, getting into the heart of the NBA season. So just
MLK Day. There's a bunch of NBA games on Monday. I'm off, so I'm going to enjoy that as well.
Should be good. Well, we'll see everybody back here on Monday. Thank you for coming in and seeing things from our view from the bench. I'm Brendan.
And I'm Corey. And like we always say, enjoy the sports until we talk again.
Peace.